Call this meeting to order. This is a city workshop budget meeting of the Flagler Beach City Commission. Today is Monday, August 10th. Time is 5:30 p.m. And Mr. Sherman, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll follow that by a moment of silence to honor our veterans, members of the armed forces, and first responders.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, if everybody could take a look at their cell phones, make sure they're on silent, vibrate, or turned off, please. And just as a couple business points here, this meeting will be continued on until all items are complete. This does not have an 8:30 cutoff, although I hope we don't get to that. Because we got to get it done. City manager, anything you want to intro?
No, I think we left off on the page. I don't know if you have any questions following Thursday night discussion, so we can start with that aspect of it.
All right, if you could pull your mic a little bit closer.
All right.
Probably, Rhonda, you're going to as well. I did have a question brought up before we jump in on page 40. I had a question brought up on page 38. Commissioner Cunningham, you want to cover that? 40?
Just notice the salary is going down almost 10%, but the retirement is going up almost 23%. Why is that?
Oh, yeah, this is related to how we budget people in the contingency department, and then when they're hired, the salary and the benefits are moved to the salary line from the contingency. So that's a byproduct of how we move people when they're hired. Like, for example, in this proposed budget, there's a part-time staffer allocated in the finance department. So that person's salary and benefits are on the contingency salary and benefit line. When that person gets hired in the finance department, all of those salary and benefits get moved to the salary line. We don't then break them out into the taxes and FICA and retirement line. So that leads to a percentage change, but so it's a little difficult to compare the salary line to the salary line.
Seems like it would balance out to me. I mean, if they're taking a portion of a salary from another bucket, another department, whatever percentage that is, the retirement would be that percentage also, right?
Correct. But what happens is we move, what page is contingency? What's that?
Okay. Commissioner Cunningham, since you're on page 38, you'll see down at the very bottom, you'll see salary contingency and then equipment and supply contingency, the 111,016 and the 3,000. So this is where we budgeted the incremental head count for the additional utility maintenance personnel. So if you take a look at the 111,016 plus the 308, you'll get the amended budget, which is the 419. Like Mr. Martin had said, that 111,016 is fully loaded salaries.
So the salary line gets...
I don't see any 11s on page 38, unless anybody else does.
Second line from the bottom.
Oh, the cost. I thought it was about the code.
Right, so we amended the budget for the 111,016. So that would be the change to the original budget from 308 in salaries to 419.
Thank you. That's clear as mud.
It's kind of a little weird. I guess maybe on future budgets, is it possible to just, if we're doing anything like that, to put the entire thing under contingency and pull it off of the main page? Does that make sense? Because what we're doing is the salary is not on, say, for instance, page 38. That would be under a salary contingency line. in a different account, but, I mean, is
Well,
there a way to
not
do the
in
whole
the
thing?
utility billing, because that's part of an enterprise fund. But in the other departments, yeah, what happens is, the $111,000, the second from the bottom line, that is salary and benefits. So when we add that to the salary line, basically the salary line is overinflated, because it also includes retirement, medical benefits,
Yeah.
and things like that. So we don't typically break out those when we hire the new person. We don't break out onto the FICA line. We don't add the FICA. We just add that to the salary line instead of going through the process of adding it to the retirement line, the salary line, and the Medicare line, life and health insurance, workers' comp. It's still all loaded on the salary line.
Yep. All right, and then we had another question, it was on page 39, so if everybody could take a look at that. Commissioner Spell.
Yes, I had a note, Dale, for the bottom line, $26,226,000 figure. I just had a note that there would be an allocation breakdown of that at some point.
So this is where, and Ms. Allen will be able to offer a little more insight from the accounting perspective. So that line, really, it's not for contingencies, it's for capital projects and depreciation. So, for example, and so we included the money from the wastewater treatment plant, right, as a revenue, which it shouldn't show up as a revenue because it goes to the balance sheet.
Right.
So that line is, once we take that revenue out, it's not as if we're ending up with $26 million in profit. It goes to the balance sheet, and the reason we have that money is because, as we briefly talked about last time, was we have to pay depreciation every year, and that's going to go up. So we have $53 million of impending capital costs in the utility department, which that depreciation will hit our books, as you can see on the depreciation expense. So that's only going to keep going up. So that's what's going to use up that money on the balance sheet. So it's not as if we get $26 million in cash and that's just pure profit. That is to be used for future capital projects and the depreciation for the assets that we already have, such as the wastewater treatment plant and the pier. Those are the two key components that lead to the perception that we have this. We're making $26 million, and what are we going to use that money for? Well, you need to pay for that for the depreciation and other future capital projects.
And would you say the pier and the wastewater treatment plant make up the bulk of that figure? Is that what you said?
The pier would be in a different account.
Yeah.
So I think that number, once Ms. Allen made those accounting type changes, that line goes from 26 million to roughly 2 million.
And that's what we'll see on the final budget.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Sherman.
Yeah, Mr. Martin, would you be able, you mentioned capital projects, and I think, that $26 million, I know you gave a pretty solid explanation, but is there any possibility, in the future here, before October, we would be able to kind of have something to fall back on? Again, like I said, the utility rates are going up, by 20% potentially. And I'd just like to have some sort of understanding. I know you mentioned well sites and, different things that we're going to be doing throughout the year. Now, obviously, the wastewater treatment plant's, a massive expense. But any sort of ammunition to support what you're doing would be really great to be able to share with any
Absolutely.
in the public.
Ms. Allen is working with Ms. Harlan to develop kind of a 1 or 2 page fact sheet summary that talks about the state revolving loan funds and how that has to be repaid and the grants. And so, yes, you will have a document that hopefully, probably within the next week, another document that'll help explain the debt service and our loan payments and things like that for all the projects that we're working on.
All right, thank you.
Did we get either a financial or a legal opinion on the depreciation for the pier? So the pier is funded by grants and other stuff.
But it's still our asset, so we have to depreciate it.
Right. Then the other question I had is how we're doing depreciation in the budget. So if you buy, for example, a widget, it's $1,000, right? And you budget it here. And then, so let's say that's a general fund, and then you also budget depreciation on that widget. Aren't we budgeting twice for it? How wouldn't it be? Because if it's budgeted in general fund,
General fund is totally different.
so we're not doing depreciation in general fund,
No, sir.
only in enterprise.
Correct.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. All right. I thought we were doing this like kind of across the board. This is only enterprise funds that get that.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, that helps clear things up. Any other questions on 39?
Just if you want some clarification, I believe that the auditor that the city uses, James Moore, is actually going, I'm pretty sure I saw that they will have a representative down at the Florida League of Cities. So if you really want to get the auditors excited, ask them about depreciation.
I'll have one of you volunteer for that. I volunteer Commissioner Santori because he was chasing down that $100 the other day. All right, so we'll jump into page 40, city manager.
These are the impact fees, and these have been set by you in ordinance. So we're continuing to collect those forward. I believe, well, actually on the revenue side, we can, yeah, Commissioner Sherman, I think we may have addressed your question earlier. What are we going to use these projects for? What could they theoretically be used for? So projects directly associated with growth.
And we also had a consensus to workshop that as well, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, questions or comments on page 40?
If you wanted to know, I think there's also a question, if you wanted to know the current balance of those impact fee funds, they were part of the third quarterly financial report that was provided to you. So if you need any help finding those numbers are available.
I think the most important thing will be just getting that workshop, having a plan for that.
You had a note on depreciation there, 236,000,
Towards the bottom there.
yeah,
Rhonda, could you take us through that?
1,888%.
So the way that depreciation is calculated, we already obviously have assets on our books, so it's spread out over the life. So what Holly did was she took our existing assets, that portion of the depreciation that we need to reconcile or recognize in 26, 27, plus any additional capital projects is how it's calculated for the budget yet next year. So it's existing assets plus potential assets, and then she calculates the depreciation expense, and that's what's in the budget.
If we had a project that was funded originally through impact fees.
So I guess just as a general call out for the body up here, when we get these super large projects in front of us that could go under enterprise funds, just a potential unintended consequence that we would need to be aware of is, paying all that out, depreciation too. Because if you get too many of those projects going once, that could get significant very quick. It's interesting how that works like that.
That's why the revenue doesn't show up in the budget. The revenue goes straight to the balance sheet.
Got it. All right, questions or comments on page 40?
Yeah, what is the interest in the Morningside development? Because that's where I live and caught my eye.
In 2014, we did an assessment for sewer line. We ran sewer line over there, and some people had the option, they could pay it all at once. They could pay payments along with the impact fee, which our code allows for sewer impact. Or they could make payments all along, but the part of into the resolution, it was built that if you sold, refinanced, died, however, if the title changed names, that was due in full. So the interest rate was set, and then That's where that is. There's only, I think, 4 or 5 left that,
there's not very many.
yeah, that are not completely paid for.
All right, other call-outs on 40. All right, page 41. City manager.
There was a question from, Mayor King about the yard waste fee. That is a new proposed fee. We are in the last months of our current contract, which was an existing contract with, ESL, our transfer site. Waste Management, they asked for an increase, and the new contract is slated to come before you at the August City Commission meeting. And what they're proposing is municipal solid waste is $65 a ton, and yard waste is $35 a ton. Right now, yard waste is rolled into our solid waste collection aspect of it, but we don't receive any revenue for yard waste collection. I think we're paying, $45 a ton right now for, 46 for municipal solid waste, so that's going up by roughly 50%. So this is an effort to find a way to fund our sanitation operations. The Waste Management proposal calls for this change, and then annually in year 2, they call for you haven't approved this yet. The proposal calls for a 4.5% increase in year 2 and a 5% increase in year 3. What's a challenge for that is our code in section 11-15 says that we raise the rate by a very specific metric called the gross domestic price deflator, and that's been basically like a CPI. Well, last year was 2.24%, this year was 2.4%, which there could start to be a difference. Okay, if Waste Management's going to charge us 4.5% more, and we can only go up by 2%, you can see that we'd be losing ground on that. So whether, and we did get, Mr. Rodriguez went down and got some figures from the Volusia County landfill to see how they're working out, to see if that's a viable alternative. According to the numbers that they got, it's a little less expensive, but by the time you add the time and travel and wear and tear on the vehicles, in his opinion, it's basically a wash. But we may need to look at that section 11-15, which is an ordinance. It's not part of our charter, as to how we want to address that language that says we can raise our rates by that one very specific metric.
I think we just need to make the ordinance an agenda item and just change the language. It would, at some point in the future, it's going to need changed anyways, or at least brought up to speed with what's going on, I would think. Right? Do you all think so? That's an easy one. You'd be able to get that done.
Right.
We have a lot of ordinances backlog.
Then the question is, what factor, that's a very specific annual factor. So do we put in the ordinance that it's going to be raised by 3% a year, by 4%, or do you find another consumer price index or inflationary number that you can tie the annual increase to? Because I know Waste Management, from what I understand in the conversations, there is a CPI index for garbage collection in like the southeast United States. So whether we tie that to the same indicator or what, but you're right, we can talk about this with Mr. Smith and propose a revised ordinance.
Y'all good with that? Is a consensus on it?
Yeah, I mean, does it have to be tied to any specific one? Could it just be open to whatever's best for the year?
You can do that. Again, we'll have the 3-year contract with Waste Management that already calls for year 2 of 4.5% and year 3 of 5% increase. Whether we mirror whatever the contract language is with the waste hauler or the waste transfer site, or you just say, you know what, it's changed at the discretion of the city commission. You could just leave it broad like that.
Just look at it when it comes in front of us. A couple options maybe. That'd be easy to work. Questions or call-outs on 41?
I think Ms. Nobre's been doing some work on the recycling. I'm not sure if she's got any, count, we're about $25,000 this year in recycling, which last year was 7,000 and in 2024 was 5,000. So, according to the figures year to date, cardboard has brought in $5,800, aluminum has brought in 18,000, scrap metal has brought in 500, and glass has brought in approximately 800. Okay. So, roughly $50,000 in recycling revenues.
Which is a whole nother thing that needs looked at, I would think. The only question I had was about the yard waste fee. It's more conceptual, like, we have fees we're paying, costs are going up, but I guess my question is about the rationale of adding another fee versus just incorporating that into the rate. How did that get decided?
Well, we can't add it to the rate because we're capped by that section 11-15 that I just mentioned. That says we're limited to only this year we're limited to a 2.4% increase.
So this is working around the cap.
Correct, and we have never charged for yard waste collection. That has been built into the standard solid waste yard collection, but when we run the trucks for yard waste, there is no revenue being generated on that day, but we're incurring the expense of the drivers, the trucks, and the disposal. So this was to start off as $1 per account for yard waste collection.
And the only other follow-up to that would be, a lot of communities, they don't do yard waste every week. They'll do it like once a month or something. Is it worth looking at doing once a month versus every single week?
I would probably defer to Mr. Rodriguez, but from what I've come to observe is, no, we generate a lot of yard waste.
Is your mic on?
Sorry. With the yard waste, we're going to have to dig a little deeper, because obviously you guys asked for this on Friday, and Thursday, would it be a Monday? It would taken a significant amount of time. We have already disposed of over $8,000 worth of yard waste just this year, and we also have certain code enforcement policies that have to be regarded with the yard waste. So if someone puts a yard waste pile out, we typically communicate with code enforcement, hey, they have not paid yet, we will go out and tag it. If within a week they haven't paid for it or it hasn't been picked up, code enforcement must communicate again. Code enforcement then will go out and begin their process. So if we go to a month pickup, there are other policies that we have to look at adjusting. So if a pile can only sit there a week before code enforcement gets involved now, and if I cut today, they picked up yesterday, it's going to sit there for a month. We have to look at that with code enforcement as well.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Might be worth just looking at the whole thing in general, just pickups all together, like the frequency. There's been years of debate between us and Rob about, do we need it twice a week, once a week? It'd be good just to have somebody just take a look at all of that to see if there's any cost savings, potentially. Not for this budget. But
Right, yeah, if you went to, but again, yeah, the discussion now is always, you're disposing about in the same amount of trash, but do you put it on only, instead of Monday, Thursday, do you only do it on Mondays?
yeah,
So,
and I don't know. I don't think any of us know, and it'd be worth just studying this year to see, are we on the right path, or can we tweak it, and would it be worth it?
As far as the one day a week, that's basically what we're doing, because we'll do the north and the west side pretty much on Mondays and Tuesdays. And by Wednesday, Thursday, we're doing the south side. So we're not doing like 2 days a week of yard waste. Even
No,
though-
we're talking about residential trash.
Oh, the
pickup.
trash, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just brought up, like, it be just looking at the entire process. Is it better to do it twice a week or once a week? None of us know, but it'd be worth looking at, see if there's any money savings. Because the argument was you generate the same amount of tonnage. If you do it once a week, you're just doing twice the work. But, you know, it's hard to say. You still got routes and labor you got to pay, but it'd be worth looking at.
We are also generating a significant amount more. Since October of 25, we've generated an additional 286 homes. So that adds for that pickup. So I don't know if we would be able to get I don't know if currently we can get all of one day's sanitation without having to dump before the next day. So that's with 2 pickups
Yeah.
a week.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there's a lot more garbage now than when I first started. When I first started here, you would be able to get 2 days of garbage on the truck. There is no way you could do that now. If you tried to do that, you would get maybe to 9:30-ish, 10 o'clock in the morning. You would have to send the truck to the dump to go dump and then come back and finish the route. There's no more not taking the truck to the dump every day. So we're pretty much going every day to the dump.
Good info.
And even with the yard waste, when he does yard waste on the west side on a Monday, he just about packs out the truck. So we're doing a lot of yard waste. For such a small town, we do an abundance of yard waste here.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments on 41?
I had one.
Yes, sir.
Recycling revenue, the 14,000 that was this budget year and 16,000 for next budget year we're doing right now. On the ledger, it looks like we're recycling revenue, we're already at 26,000 in recycling revenue. We're only raising it to 14,000 from 12.
Essentially, we're actually closer to 50,000 if you count the glass.
Yeah, even more so.
We can go back and revisit the budget on those line items. Because I know we just recently, when these numbers were originally put together, we recently got a big check from one of our big recycling vendors, so that wasn't reflected in my forecast for next year, so I'll go back and take a look at it.
Crystal, was that glass a one and done thing, just an oddball one, or is that going to be consistent? We're going to get a lot of information at League of Cities. All right, call us on 41. All right, page 42.
The questions were from the mayor again about as Commissioner Cunningham brought up, about loading the salary, leading to the non-relationship or with the health insurance as well. We have put together a spreadsheet that I'll share with you that with regard to the health insurance that shows about the 8 different options that the city has been presented with. So I'll share those with you so you can at least get a better understanding of what the different programs are. Travel and training, I think this was related to, as I mentioned before, about our mechanic being trained for working on public safety vehicles. So I think that's the bulk of that training. Telecommunications, it's again getting the cell phones. It was the vehicle trackers for all the vehicles as well. And the cell phones for city staff.
Questions on page 42 or comments? The only question I got is this mechanic. So currently this mechanic is classified under the sanitation department, correct?
Correct.
So if they start doing a bunch of repairs, then you're gonna have to kind of change the staffing.
No, what'll happen is that, say that mechanic is qualified to work on police vehicles. What'll happen is on the police department vehicle maintenance line, they will pay the sanitation department.
Right. The only issue I see though is if they're classified as sanitation, they would be out running, right?
No, this is a dedicated mechanic.
Oh, it's a dedicated mechanic.
Correct.
Got
He's
it.
not a thrower, he's not a driver, he is a dedicated mechanic.
Okay. And this is a new position?
No, when did we bring on Bill?
Okay. Alright, anybody have any call-outs on page 42?
And one of the positions we're adding is we're taking a part-time driver to a full-time driver in the sanitation fund in anticipation of the expansion of the collection effort for Veranda Bay and Summertown.
Did the forklift ever get bought?
Are we currently servicing Veranda right now? Okay.
Yeah, staff work diligently because Waste Pro and making sure that Waste Pro is the service provider out there right now, and it was interesting that some parts would be serviced by Waste Pro, some parts by the city, so Ms. Nobre and Mr. Rodriguez have been coordinating the transition from those areas over to the city.
Good deal. Any other comments or questions on 42? Alright, page 43. City manager.
Yep, these are the same issue as Commissioner Cunningham brought up before about the salary and the life insurance, life and health insurance. Again, salary, most of the increase is due to the transition from a part-time driver to the full-time driver.
See, that's what, sorry, that's what I was meaning, see how the salary, 20.96%, the retirement, 20.96%, see how they balance out?
Correct, because we
That's
didn't
what
have,
I'm not getting.
we didn't have any contingency hires in the sanitation department last year, so that's why that is more directly proportional to each one. And those funds or departments where we added staff in the middle of the year, that's what throws that relationship out of kilter. But this is how, yeah, it shows a direct relationship when you add a new employee or convert one from part-time to full-time. That relationship is very direct.
Alright, question about reserve for contingencies. If you could explain that number, because that number has been very dynamic over the years.
Right, that again is for, and we will change that line for reserve for contingencies to reserve for capital projects and depreciation, because we need the depreciation, because included in this budget is the purchase of a new truck.
Okay, so that line is capital projects.
And depreciation, correct.
Alright, yeah, definitely a new name for that line would help, because that gets real confusing. Because reserve for contingencies, for those that have been following budgeting over the years, there was a time, you'd remember this, where departments were each budgeting reserves for each department, and we pushed back on that pretty hard, because we have reserves. And by department reserves, we did not think was the right idea. All right, other questions or comments on 43? Mr. Santori?
Yeah, just generally after hearing you say that, I mean, will there be two different lines that say reserved for projects and then a different line for reserved for depreciation, just so we can differentiate it easy?
Yeah, depreciation really wouldn't be under capital projects. There's always been a line for capital projects previous years.
Yeah, I'll work on that with Ms. Harlan and Ms. Allen to figure out what, and it may just say reserve for future depreciation.
All right, other calls on 43. Page 44, city manager.
This is predicated upon the stormwater increase of, is that the 20% as well? Yes. Going from $20.45 to $24.54. That's what the stormwater fees generate. We're talking roughly $1.5 million in revenues.
All right.
We have several grant projects that are currently working their way through the process.
Questions about page 44? All right, page 45. City manager.
Yep, again, the salary, overtime, FICA, and retirement are related to the additional, you can see down at the second line from the bottom, the salary contingency. So we added staff, which, again, throws off those numbers and their direct relationship with each other.
All right, and reserve for contingencies is capital projects.
And depreciation. At the end of the day, we're going to have to pay the depreciation in future years. So we can't spend it all on capital projects. You can't spend it on projects when 3 years from now, you're going to have to pay the piper
Right.
the $500,000 or that depreciation expense is going to continue to grow over the years. So yes, the money is being set aside for future depreciation costs.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with Commissioner Santori. It'd be nice to see two lines, one for depreciation, one for capital projects. That way it gives us a clear line of sight. Because I think that's important, especially if you get these high ticket items that require a lot of depreciation. It just makes trying to look at future capital projects, it gets murky.
Yeah.
Trying
You'll
to
see all the capital projects already spelled out on the next page. So those are already spelled out what we're using for capital project expenses. So, yeah, we'll come up with the appropriate name for that line, but most likely it'll just be future depreciation, reserve for future depreciation.
All right, questions on page 45?
I do.
Yes, sir.
The reserve for contingency, this budget year, 227, there's still 227 in there. Are we adding another 417,000 of that to make it 644,000? Instead of using this for fixing our stormwater system?
Right, that'll be for the depreciation of the projects that will be built next fiscal year, and the accumulation for the depreciation for the projects completed in this year as well.
But there's a line for depreciation.
Correct. So that line is, the 644 will be for the projects which we most likely will complete next year. We're not paying depreciation for those until those assets come online. So next year's depreciation expense line will probably increase to close to 644,000.
I'm just curious, what projects are those that are now moving into that depreciation line that we did, or before me?
Is that going to be under capital? Are we covering that?
Correct, when we go through the
Okay.
stormwater
It'll
improvements.
be up in a few pages here. Next page. The only question I had was on professional services, if you can take us through that one.
You want to look up the note on that one, or actually Bill's here.
I hope this is not another meat and hunt study.
It's not another meet and hunt study. Or CPH. No, so we do have a couple projects we're working on. One of them is Palm Harbor. We also have South 2700 block of South Daytona. That's another one where we're using some professional service. And then we also have South Flagler, a drainage, a resiliency project there. There's still some ongoing engineering services for that one too.
So, just so we know, like the one on 27th you talked about, what do we hire them to do?
So in 2700 block, so we're going after a grant, and this grant and the project will improve drainage along South Daytona between 28th and 26th Street. We're looking at conveying water
to Powell Parker and installing some stormwater ponds in that area, as well as looking into the area behind those lots that also border John Bowl Drive. So there's that area where you have those. There's an easement right there where it constantly floods. So we're looking at that area to see how we can get that to drain properly, so it covers the entire area.
They're gonna do the engineering for that?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Sherman?
Yeah, while you're on that subject, didn't you already do something this past year with like running a line down there, something like that in that easement that you mentioned? Or was that something that you were just in discussion about?
We had a feasibility study
Okay.
that was done in that area, and that was it.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions for city engineer while he's up here?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing, on the ledger, under professional service, Palm Drive study for $34,795. Just for Palm Drive?
Yes. That was that.
It seems a little suspicious, just under 35,000. And I don't know what we're getting for $35,000.
So what they're doing is they're comparing. So that was a number one ranked drainage project in the study that was done by McKinnon Creed. That was a number one ranked project. So what we're doing is getting a feasibility study to look and see what's the best way to actually handle the drainage. There were options as to whether or not we do curb and gutter with underground drainage, or if we do surface drainage. And then how much of the streets are we going to repave, versus to see whether or not we could do something without going through that full extent. Because when you look at that whole area, if you redo all the streets and you raise the grades of them and do curb and gutter, you could be looking at $4 million. So rather than just say, well, that's what we're going to do, let's look at the options. If we could do a $2 million option, let's do the $2 million option instead of the $4 million option.
We already approved a big project back there this year too, right?
That's what we're talking about, the feasibility study.
That study was for the project that we approved, correct?
Yes, that's the one we're talking about.
Yeah.
The one that just got done on Palm Drive.
I think you're talking about Custer's Palm Harbor, the pond.
Yeah.
That's a different. So they have a similar name, Custer's Palm Harbor, and then there's Palm Harbor. So
Where's Palm Drive?
they're on the
Well,
same
just got
street,
done finishing the new stormwater pond there.
right? So they're two different subdivisions. They're separated by the canal. If you go on Palm Drive, there's a canal that runs east and west. So they're separated, those two subdivisions. You have Custer's Palm Harbor to the south, and then to the north you have Palm Harbor.
Both on the west side of the intercoastal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right, questions?
They submit their qualifications and they submit a price range of what they charge for their services of their staff.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to know what we got for the 35,000.
The study, they're still working on it. They haven't completed it yet. At this point, we've gotten survey work, but they still have some additional work to do, and they're hoping to be done, they told me by the end of October.
Well, then an update on what they've done and what else they had to do. I'll take that.
Okay?
What other questions we got on 45? All right, capital projects.
Right, these are organized by the enterprise fund in sequence that they're presented in the budget. So the first one is the pier. Obviously, the pier construction is ongoing. And then the beach walk project, which is still in the design and engineering phase with rebuilding the dune.
just for ease of going through this, did y'all wanna just jump to 47, because that has the information on 46 plus the lineup of all of them? Would that be easier?
Much easier to follow.
Makes sense.
Okay.
And actually on 47 and I think the last 3 pages, 47, 48, and 49, and even 50, a lot of these may have been covered when we covered the capital fund earlier, specifically those in the general fund. So we've gone over quite a few in the facilities and the police, fire station repairs. So a lot of those we've already covered when we covered the capital fund and the general fund. But if you want to go down them line by line again,
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of potentially new stuff when we get to the enterprise funds, but yeah, I think just covering this page by page, and there will be some overlap, as city manager talked about. All right, questions on 47?
Well, my questions were on 46, is where I had
Alright.
them all wrote. I know it's probably similar to what 47 is, but
yeah, I think
All the same, so go ahead and shoot.
the yard spotter, I know what a yard spotter is. Move this sludge trailer around at the new screw press.
And I think staff has found an alternative solution, working with McMahon, is it? Merrill Brothers. Merrill Brothers. So they have a used, basically semi-cab. You want to explain what the concept
Yeah,
is?
so they have a used semi-truck, basically, what they use to transport all their sludge. So they worked out a deal with us. Basically, we can purchase it up front for approximately $20,000, or you can actually rent to own. They said you could break it down where it's going to be, trying to think of the numbers offhand, I think it was $4,000 a month until we own it.
So that yard spotter line will go away?
Yeah, it sounds a lot better than 145,000.
Right.
Sure.
And Mr. Anderson worked with Merrill Brothers to come up with, at least presented what our needs were, and so they said, sure, we can help you out, and they offered that lease to own or outright purchase for $20,000. So you can strike that yard spotter for $145,000.
Reclaimed water mains, John Anderson Highway, design and construction. $5,355,000. When will water be in that line? Why does this have to be in this year? This could be pushed out 3 years. Engineering, construction for John Anderson and Roberts Road. I can tell you that number is way high to run 4,000 feet of 8-inch or whatever size it's going to be. And the Roberts Road one. That was a question.
So what we're trying to do is be strategic with our utility fund for the next 5 years until 2031, when we're trying to get the entire network in working order to have reuse throughout the city. So that's one of our first phases, because it happens to be right there where you can readily get it to Veranda Bay, as well as to Beach Park Village and the Preserve. Those areas have purple pipe in them right now, so we're going to run it out there to along John Anderson and Roberts Road.
Now, my point is, how many years until there's water in that reused line and it's just going to be sitting there? Why are we doing
It'll
that
be
now?
about 5 years. Well, because of the way that we're doing, reaching out for the grants and the funding, and I can't do it all at once. So
Because you could very well get grant money for some of this, or all of it.
But the grant money comes in individual years, and so I have to create different projects for each individual year and go after the grants for it at that year, and then I would have a certain time frame to complete those projects. I wouldn't be able to go get a grant for the entire thing at once.
Is John Anderson and Roberts Road reuse lines going to be installed in this coming fiscal year?
That is the goal, yes.
I don't see where that needs to be done when it's gonna be 5 years before water's in it. Doesn't even make sense to me. I mean, strategic, if you're thinking about it strategically, that's what you would wanna do. You're front loading everything. This is not gonna be grant money. Right now, it's not. It could take several years to get grant money. We're front loading all this and it's gonna come out of the city's budget this year, this budget year.
Well, like I mentioned, I'm trying to be strategic in how I get those grants. So if it takes me, we've started working on it already, so I have the design 60% done, and we're going after the grants now. So I'm anticipating that we'll have those grants towards the end of this year, and then I can go after, once we do construction, we'll apply those grants for the construction.
If the line gets done before the grant gets approved or possibly even looked at, would that
You couldn't.
keep them from giving you a grant even though you got all the lines already in?
That's not what I would do.
Yeah, you can't do grants after the fact.
Well, then, that's another good point then. Why are we doing it all up front? Let's push it. It's gonna be 5 years before water's in the line? Is it just so, or does that make sense to
It
anybody?
does. I think, just for clarity, what I'm hearing is, in this, it's really administrative. So if you put it in the budget, and keep in mind this, any of these capital projects have to come to us for approval, but if you put it here in the budget and you're pursuing grants, is it better to not list it as a capital project until you get a grant for it, or is it better to try to list it as a capital project for this year and then try to capture grants? It seems like if you add it as a capital project now and then try to get grants for it before you get funding, it seems like that would make things confusing. City manager, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, typically, like Mr. Freeman indicated, the intent is, and I think if you look at page 48, 49, 49 for the John Anderson construction, it says unrestricted utility fund, the $5 million. But yes, I think what we plan on doing is, yes, we will be seeking the grant funding in order to move that project forward.
So really, we need to change the funding source on that capital project.
Correct.
That would add a lot of clarity. And I think that would also cover Commissioner Cunningham's concerns, is by not saying you're pulling it out of a restricted utility fund and you say it's funded via a grant. Does that work for you, Commissioner Cunningham?
Yeah, unless the line already is complete. I mean, can it be done while you're in the middle of waiting to see if you're gonna get a grant for it?
Well, as Commissioner Cooley said, typically grants do not allow you to go backwards and be reimbursed for, unless the grant specifically is for reimbursement, but it doesn't go backwards.
I think it's too dangerous to do.
Right.
Well, I had a question too. I know Commissioner Cunningham had mentioned this, and I know you were pursuing some of these, or in discussions of getting water in these pipes. You said 5 years. I mean, what's the age? Like, how long can they sit there without any water before, we're digging these back up, and, we already spent all this money due to, again, I'm not an expert in this, but I know Commissioner Cunningham kind of raised that concern, and, looking at these dollars and cents, I just want to make sure if we, say, hey, go ahead and pursue these, we're not going to be, laying this pipe down and then digging the pipe back up because there's no water in them, and then, we have all kinds of issues due to, 5 years of them just sitting there deteriorating.
Dry lines are not good to have.
So one of the things that's done to prevent that is you can actually put Vaseline or something similar on the seals, and then typically they're not exposed to the weather either. So that once they're underground, they're not exposed to the sun or anything like that. So we're not anticipating a whole lot of degradation to the lines just because they're in there empty.
Have you, in your previous 10 years anywhere, have you done projects like this and, you know, that they've sat there without any water flowing through them, or what preventative things have you guys done to ensure the success? 'Cause
I have not had anywhere sat there that long, but other than putting Vaseline on the seals, that's the only thing that I'm aware of.
Okay, so it's kind of a risk we're taking here then, in a way, if we go forward with it.
But to be clear, the deadline is to have water in the pipes by 5 years. But
So we were going to make it 4.5, 3,
it could be 2 or 3 years depending on when the wastewater treatment plant is finished and when we can produce satisfactory reclaimed water.
I just don't want to put the cart before the horse, if that makes sense.
I would say pursue the grants.
So my goal is, like I said, pursue the grants, but we're going to finish the wastewater treatment plant in approximately 2.5 years. So when the wastewater treatment plant is completed, the goal is to actually have that online at that point.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't get grants, you don't move forward.
Right.
And then if you get grants, that's the first place you gotta put the pipes. So if you change your funding source to where the city's not just gonna pay and stick them in the ground, and you go to, you know, grants, I think that's safer alternative, right?
And when I'm talking about 5 years, that's for the whole network, so that's throughout the whole city.
Okay.
That's phase one.
Well, also I had a question too. Why aren't we seeing, you know, you're running the purple pipe there to Beach Park Village and then to the preserve there, and you're also running it south down John Anderson. Why aren't we seeing anything for Wadsworth Park there? They've got the massive fields over there as well. You know, I know we're kind of hanging on the hope that Randa Bay is going to demand all this water, but in the meantime, there's a lot of greenery over there that could use a lot of water. Has there been any discussions of adding that into this project?
So the purple pipe that goes down John Anderson would serve Wadsworth Park. Robert Road, I'm
It
sorry.
would serve that. Okay,
Yes.
I just didn't see it. You mentioned those, you know, the apartment complex and the subdivision, but I wasn't sure about the park. Okay. Okay.
To both your points, and this was one of the comments that I had, is I think we are at a point where we need to be presented a water reuse master plan that we approve, that covers the growth phases and the potential layout of this. Because I've heard everything from going to the golf course to tying into Benell to, you know, going to Veranda, and just, you know, there's a lot of concepts and ideas, but we're at the point, I feel, that we need to have in place an approved master plan for this.
Actually, you guys you actually already approved the master plan back in 2024. I will provide you copies of it.
For the water reuse, and it has the growth phases of where we're gonna go with this?
Yes. Right now, we're just following that.
Where was I?
I don't know. It was prepared by CP8. That's right.
Was this part of like the big giant thing?
Yeah, we included a lot of the documents or portions of the reuse master plan in support of our legislative priority to get funding for the wastewater treatment plant.
Right, okay, so that was buried in the 400 pages of, alright, so.
I will share that plan with you, and please.
Yeah, I think we should get a copy of just that, so we can review it.
It included the whole capital plan for the 5-year or so build-out of the reuse system in its entirety.
Right.
That was, obviously, that predates Commissioner Cunningham, but I believe it was a 2024 document.
That's correct. Well, we got newer things too. You got Eco Center, that is a possible outlet. You have Benell. Those are all new things that were not part of that, because it's all new stuff, and we just.
Yeah, we can adapt the plan as well, but we do have an adopted master plan for reuse
Okay.
that I will get you tomorrow.
Nice. Some we can talk about at League of Cities.
No, you can't. Not to each other.
Commissioner Cunningham, what else did you have on page, get my readers, 46?
A bunch of stuff. Covered the reuse lines, the yard spotter. How many manhole rings and covers do we have left that we haven't done?
I'd have to double check, but we have over 550, and we've done, I think, 170. So we have quite a few. There's a couple of lines on there that we want to remove from capital. In the water production total, develop the interlocal agreement, right-of-way agreement with Palm Coast, that shouldn't be listed as a capital project. And the same with conducting the rate impact fee study, and I believe evaluate the funding options. Those should not be, they were originally considered as capital, but they're not capital, so we can pull those out of the capital projects for the enterprise fund, those three items.
Great impact fee study, which was under what? Under water production.
Under water production.
What was the third one?
Evaluate funding options for the reuse system.
Okay.
Conduct rate impact fee study, and then develop the interlocal agreement. None of those really should be classified as capital. They'll probably be moved over to professional services. And PAR is what I came to learn was public access reuse. It's a different standard, and that's what we are going to have to implement. So that's what the PAR stands for.
All right, Commissioner Cunningham, what was your question?
Next one I got is lift station rebuilds, $1,335,000. I know we have a lot of
Did we get your other question, the one you just had answered?
the manhole rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
What lift stations are these for? Rebuilds?
Let's see here. I've got, I've got one at Snack Jacks. That's lift station 10.
I'll get to that one in a minute.
And I know I've got the one at Oak Street.
They're showing 2, 4, 5, and 7.
Right. So 2 is Station 2 is 2701 South Daytona Avenue. C4. I've got the one at North 20th Street. The one at 1420 Lambert. And then 17 Oak Lane.
Those are the ones we already approved.
We're not finished paying for those.
You can send me a list of them, or anybody else that wants one. $500,000 for lift station generators. I did what Johnny said and went and looked at the screw press Friday, and went into his office. I walked in the big building in there. There's a dozen generators in there that look like they're almost brand new. I didn't see the hour meters on them, but there was a dozen of them in there. I counted them.
We just recently bought a bunch, didn't we?
And for me, only $75,000 for a bypass pump on a trailer. Is that just one?
Yes.
Those are more valuable to have than a generator for a lift station. Because if your whole panel blows out, it don't matter how many generators you have, you're not going to be able to run that lift station. The bypass pump, you hook it directly up, it's going to keep pumping, electricity or not. So I think that should be thought about, flipping it around. I mean, how many generators do we need? If they're for lift stations, make up some of that with bypass pumps. That's always a way to go.
Well, I guess Commissioner Cunningham, do you have somebody from staff, city manager, that can speak about the count of generators or where we're at with the overall health of them and that kind of thing? So we know what we got, what they're for. Are those all spoken for, or?
Last I remember, we had 10 at one point. We lost 3 of them. 3 of them died on us. So we purchased 2 more. So we'd like to have 10 again. At least 10. We have 26 lift stations throughout the city. So in the event of a storm, for instance, when Hurricane Milton hit, we lost power citywide. So we were scrambling to go throughout the city and get them hooked up to the generator and keep them running. And we managed to prevent any major spills.
Well, that's my point. If it's a hurricane, I don't even like saying the whole word, just H. I mean, it could blow your panel completely away, or debris hitting it, and what I'm saying is the generator's not going to do you any good at all.
Right, so we have a 4-inch bypass pump and a 6-inch bypass pump, so we want to get another 6-inch.
What I'm saying is it might happen to that to a dozen electric panels for the lift stations.
And I wouldn't disagree that getting another bypass pump, that's a good idea. We'd be glad to adjust the budget to do that.
How many generators does $500,000 get you?
What line item are you looking at?
Lift station generators. 46.
Right, but it's also on, 49 has all the data from 46.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is where I wrote all my notes.
Yeah.
Are the good ones?
Yeah, be line 100 on page 49.
They're little squirrels.
Yep.
Right. So there's a dozen generators in that building. You can go look. Screw press is awesome now.
So,
Watched it run. Very, very, very good.
so those, remember I was telling you how we had originally 10 generators? They were Kohlers, and 3 of them already died, so 6 more of them are looking pretty bad. We received those on a grant several years ago, and they just are not a very good piece of equipment. So we want to replace the 6 of those Kohlers. And they're approximately $60,000 a piece.
What's wrong with them?
So they've failed on us. When you take them out to go use them, they've failed. There was I'm trying to remember what it was. Something on the control panel. There was a piece that was defective, and it started to fail on the other ones. And so it's the same thing. It just wasn't functioning properly.
And these are out of warranty?
They are.
Well, what is the issue with them? Is it something that can't be fixed? I mean, it's a generator.
So
If it's an electric panel, that can be replaced.
we had one of our past facilities directors reach out to an electrical company, and they looked at the panels, and basically what he said is that in order to get to the panel, you'd have to rebuild so much of that generator that you might as well just get a brand new one to replace it.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that might be some perhaps take a look at for follow-up, just another set of eyes on it. And
I think we've worked with former facility directors, and they have looked at it, and this is what staff recommends. If you don't want us to buy them, if you want us to work around it, we can do that as well. But if we got that many generators that went bad due to poor reliability, then as Mr. Freeman said, we have 26, 27 lift stations around town, and the goal is to try and get generators to support those lift stations.
But to Commissioner Cunningham's point, I think I'm learning a lot from this. So to his point, he mentioned instead of getting, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned instead of using the $500,000 on generators to get the lift stations, or I'm sorry, the bypass pump trailers instead, because then you like you said, if the electrical blows out again, I'm not an expert in this stuff.
No, you're right.
But so I was looking for maybe some. So I mean, again, I just.
We love the bypass pumps. We would love to get more bypass pumps in
So,
lieu of
in
generators.
your opinion, then, as the city's engineer, would you recommend us getting those instead of generators? I mean, what do you see?
I would echo it. I'd get half generators, half bypass pumps.
I mean, I just from previous experience living down the street from when the one on 16th Street went out. That's a whole nother story. But I can't recall what that was that caused it. But that was a mess. And if we have something that literally, if we could have something that might, not. I don't know. Again, you're the pro here. I would just,
Right.
So I think
we would love to do that. What we've done in the past is we've used our generators, and we've had issues with them as well, and we've had to rent a bypass pump. We've used ours, and we've had some failures on the bypass pump, so we had to rent a bypass pump in the meantime. So we would love to have some on hand just in case.
How do you guys feel about? I mean, I guess they come back to us with a split on that.
Or what if you just combine bypass pumps and generators in one item?
Yeah, so with that line item, that's what we would do. Well, and actually, when I went over and said some of those things were not going to be capital, those evaluations, that's $150,000 right there, so we could reallocate that $150,000 either for bypass pumps or generators.
Yeah, might help just to combine the items and.
Well, I don't think we can combine, because they're two completely different items, but we can have one line for the bypass pumps and one line for the generators.
Right. All right, what else you got, Commissioner Cunningham?
The relocate Snack Jack lift station, $500,000. We're relocating it for less than what we're rebuilding some of these other ones. And honestly, that lift station doesn't even need to be there. I bet it runs probably 15 minutes a day, maybe at the most. It needs to be abandoned or removed, and Snack Jack just needs to get their own pump tank or even gravity flow. He could gravity flow into it. That lift station doesn't even need to be there. Get rid of it. I know we paid them a bunch of money because it was on their property, but it doesn't even need to be there. It can go away.
That's a good catch. We can adjust that. One of the reasons we have to relocate it was that lift station was never permitted through DEP.
Yeah, I know it got moved after Matthew, I think, in 16.
Right. But that was
Road
never
washed out.
that was never presented, so it was never appropriately permitted.
Well, I mean, my whole point is it doesn't even need to be there.
Correct.
Get rid of it. Sewer camera, $60,000. That's a very high-end camera. That's what the professionals use. Who's our professionals?
So as far as our staff, anybody who's in public works would use this thing. It's pretty easy to use. You have a controller it's basically a PlayStation controller that you use for games. The different buttons on it will adjust whether it goes forward or backwards. There's an arm with a camera on it. It will lift, it'll rotate, it'll swivel, and each button on the controller does exactly that. So as far as all
Software programs and calibration programs, there's a bunch of stuff that goes along with this, along with all the certification you gotta have to even understand how it works and what you're looking at.
There's no certification to use a camera.
If you're using it as a professional, you are.
If we want to reduce that line item to a less expensive camera, that's up to you. If you want to spend $30,000 for the camera, this is your budget. These are put together on staff recommendations.
I was thinking this whole time there was gonna be a little mini van that was part of it.
I think this is going to be part of a trailer that
Yeah.
is scheduled elsewhere in the budget as well.
Well, you're gonna sit in a trailer with no air conditioning and watch a camera, operate a camera to a sewer line? That'd be a hot box. Look at all the sewer camera trucks, they're all fully enclosed. Yeah, there's the National Association of Sewer Service Company, the NASCO Pipeline Assessment Certification Program, all those. Unless you're just wanting to use it as a toy to go look at inside of sewer pipes and storm drains. It's definitely not a toy. A sophisticated piece of equipment.
You have so there's a couple ways you can go about it. When this comes before us, staff could present us, multiple options we could look at and take it from there, or try to come up with a new number in the capital plan now. Anybody have any preferences on how to address it? Mr. Spradley?
This is an area, one of those areas that my knowledge base is exactly zero. So I like the idea of options because I like to listen to Mr. Cunningham, and because this is his area of expertise, it sure isn't mine. And so I have trouble even weighing in on these things. So options sounds great.
Okay, if we're gonna do options, are y'all okay with leaving that 60 alone since it's gonna come to us?
Yeah,
With multiple options?
we'll prepare a request for proposals, and it'll outline, and we'll share with you, if you want, what the proposals entail, and we put it out for bids.
Feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And, because it's an enterprise fund, so this isn't affecting ad valorem. You're basically just kind of, earmarking this and saying, we're gonna move forward roughly with this, but if they bring proposals forward, then we can choose, and we might end up with a $25,000 camera. Or we might end up with a $125,000 camera.
For the same reason, I would feel uncomfortable moving this number now. I wouldn't know whether to move it up or down or sideways or what. So, option sounds good to me.
Is everybody okay with that, Commissioner Cunningham?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because it has to come before us anyways. All right, what else we got?
Forgive me if I'm jumping around on the next pages, but all my notes are on this one. The stormwater improvements, am I understanding this right? Revenue is $1.5 million, right? And we're only doing 500,000 improvements. Where's the other $1 million going? Now you got salaries, there's actually 10 salaries tied to stormwater fund.
Did you have a list of the stormwater projects, Bill, that you were talking about? Right. I wasn't sure I understood the question.
Why don't you explain the 1.490 on page 45?
Right, because right now, under capital projects, you got 500,000. So that leaves a delta of about $1 million.
Right, so, I mean, I'm looking at it, it's broken out. But if you want a list of projects, I can give you that.
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
All right, so we're looking back at Palm Circle.
That's one that, we never completed this year. We're also, looking at the South Flagler flood mitigation. And we're also looking at Palm Harbor. We're looking at South Daytona, the 2700 block. And then we also have the swales from South 16th to South 22nd Street. And we still have all of our ongoing projects, just cleaning out swales, cleaning out the trench drains, still clearing out all the existing stormwater ponds, keeping them cut and maintained, cleaning out inlets throughout the city. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, the $1 million is previous projects that are rolling forward, and then all the regular maintenance and, normal budgetary items. Is that correct?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Did that make sense?
Joey says he's gonna get a list.
Right.
I mean, the way I see it is $1 million of it's going to salaries and all the other stuff, and 500,000 is to fix our stormwater systems.
And that would not work.
No. Needs to be 10 times that.
And what other costs, Commissioner
it for
Cunningham?
me.
Oh, that's everything, 46?
Yep.
All right, so let's jump on to 47.
I have a question.
Commissioner Santori.
So Miss Allen, so when he's speaking of lift station projects 2, 5, 4, and 7, these projects are getting pushed into the new fiscal year. Should there be an amended line somewhere in these previous pages that show that? Because I would imagine it was budgeted last year and now it's getting reduced, correct?
Yeah, so at the end of the fiscal year, for any projects that are not completed, we basically need to rebudget them for the following year. So that's what that dollar amount is. And this is what's the Ferrero, right? So like I said, at the end of 9/30, whatever projects are not complete, we rebudget them in the capital plan so we don't lose sight of them in the funds that we've already committed.
Okay.
We
So it's not
rebudget
showing
the
up.
remaining balance. So
Okay.
this year, we may get 50% of the project done.
Mhm.
So next year, we just budget the remaining 50%.
Understood.
So we
And-
don't, because as Commissioner Cooley brought up in the past, we would roll these projects forward and then they'd get lost from budget year. So we intentionally close out every single project at the end of the fiscal year and then we rebudget whatever is left to complete that project in the following fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it was very murky a couple years ago. Stuff would just kind of go into an abyss, and there was the tracking of it was hard to keep going. You don't know what got done, what didn't, where the money went, and it was so this way is pretty clean. At the end of the year, you'll kind of see how that plays out, and it at least keeps everything easier to track. So you'll be able to look at everything that was planned as far as capital projects and what was approved and then track it all.
And then what Mr. Freeman said about the 500,000 in the stormwater total and those projects getting rolled over to that, was that correct?
So
Instead of the $1.5 million?
The stormwater revenue, the $1.4 million, so that's all the stormwater fees that are generated from our utility billing, okay? So right now, in the stormwater fund, as of the end of Q3, we have $1.8 million in unrestricted reserves. So, so whatever money we take in that is not expensed back out will fall into this reserve at the end of the year. So like I said, this is only at the end of Q3. So if we're generating more revenues than we have expenses, that difference will go back into the undesignated reserve for additional capital projects. So in this case, since we have a budget of $500,000 and we have an unrestricted reserve of $1.8 million, I mean, you could, as a commission, decide, well, let's budget $750,000. But you also have to keep in mind that we still need to pay for depreciation and
Appreciation and also reduces our ability maybe to apply for grants.
Right.
In the time crunch, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on 47? Commissioner Spiley?
No, none.
Commissioner Sherman? Set.
Line item 23 on 47. IT commission chambers. Is this something that can come out of the BCI fund?
No, we spoke about this earlier, that's gonna be withdrawn.
Okay.
Just the funding from BCI.
And that, you're speaking about IT commission chambers?
Mm-hmm.
What about IT community center?
Separate project, but.
Right.
Not from BCI in the first place.
What are we doing in the community center, IT related?
Similar upgrades to the commission chambers, so we can use the facility for similar activities. Also helps with the renting out.
That's a lot of money.
Those will all be bid out, and they'll come before you.
And with the removal of BCI, the top priority will be these commission chambers. So if we need to move the supplemental money from the community center funding to ensure that the funding is there for this chambers, then that'll be the priority.
Yeah. I mean, I know we talked about doing things like refrigerators and freezers to get the community center to where it can be used, but $50,000 on IT work.
It's an AV system, so similar to what would be going in this commission chamber.
I mean, my 2 cents is nix that, but that's coming out of general fund, isn't it?
I mean, it sounds like it's redundant. Is there a need for the redundancy, or is it for renting it out? I'm just a little confused too about why we would need a full setup in there too.
The thought when I asked Daniel to get quotes for that was that people were complaining when we were doing the Veranda Bay, if we have a hot issue, that there's not enough room in here, we can't let all the public in, so the thought was to have a backup hookup there, and if we needed it, we could go to a larger facility and have a meeting, or if, start, renting it for other things, have more options for rentals. But it's not, that's not necessary. It's a want, but it's not necessary. The repairs in this room are unnecessary.
Mind if I jump in again?
Jump in.
So I know
Is it on this line?
yes, it is.
Okay.
So I know you were looking at equipment in here, and some of it might be wireless. And if that equipment is wireless, could it be just moved over there and used?
The equipment that was demonstrated to us that day was wireless. The equipment that was proposed to us is not wireless.
Do you know approximately what the cost difference is between the wired versus wireless?
Not off the top of my head, but I can put that in the RFP.
Well, I'll be the Debbie Downer. I'm not for it. Like, I don't remember how much that line item was for fridges and freezers and all that, but to put that type of money in the room, I get it might get rented out for a nominal fee and all that, but That's a ton of money to be putting into something that's not gonna get a lot of use. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know if y'all got any thoughts on it. Especially over 50K and audio equipment in that room. You can't even get working mics in here right now.
Well, and that's my point. If the plan was to move forward with line 23, the commission chambers, we cannot use, as we responded to Commissioner Cunningham, you can't use the building code fund. So if that was a 50-50 split, that means we'd need to roughly $30,000 to complete the upgrade for this to reach the $62,000. So let's take the money out of the community center IT and supplement that to get to the $62,000 for this room, which leaves us $20,000 that, and again, whether we spend that money or not, we can at least look at what upgrades are necessary or appropriate for the community center with the balance of that $52,000 once we transfer the $30,000 over.
Makes sense to me.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. What other questions do we have on 47?
I have a question about the fire truck. Are we putting enough away to afford a new fire truck in that 10-plus year time frame?
Trying to buy. Looking to buy a pumper, if it's just under enough, such a thing as very.
This is that whole debate about how aggressive do you want to replace the trucks and how long do you want them to go for, repair versus replacement. There's the school of thought that you should not be just buying trucks every X amount of years. You know, replace them when they become cost prohibitive while saving, but, you know, we had this conversation the other day is, you know, how many years do you want to plan your trucks to be used? And some are more conservative than others. Are you wanting to save more than $100,000?
I just want to make sure we're budgeting enough in case the need arises. And I agree with you that we should make these vehicles last as long as possible. But my concern is what happens if we have an incident where a truck becomes disabled, or if just something else happens to where, you know, even year 11, just say, even though we might try to plan for year 10, but we didn't stash enough away for it. What do we do with that case?
So, right now, we will have approximately $191,000 at the end of this year in the fire truck reserve. We have $100,000 budgeted in the reserve for this year. Once I add that to what our existing reserve was, so $191,000. Now, we can use infrastructure surtax for that, but our anticipated ending balance on the infrastructure surtax is only going to be $1.6 million. So even if we combine both, we won't have enough to pay for a $2.2 million truck.
Well, when would we, though? How many years at our current rate?
It's almost 1.7.
Right.
1.8.
So with the infrastructure surtax, we approximately get $200,000 a year. I have to go back and look.
In the capital plan, it's showing a $2.1 million fire truck purchase in 29 and 30. If we continue at the same rate that we are right now with the infrastructure surtax pulling in about $200,000, with us budgeting $100,000, that's $300,000 a year. We're at roughly $1.8 million right now, so that's $300,000 short. So at that rate, we should be able to have adequate funding based upon that projected cost when it comes time to buy that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions or comments on 47? All right, 48. Questions or callouts? Nothing.
I
Just
think we
as a-
talked about the crosswalk restamps, didn't we?
Correct. We're going to repurpose that for continuing the parking lot improvements, including bathrooms. So that'll be redesignated.
The only thing I had was the jet ski. Tom, you're here. Good. I have a question for you. A jet ski every 3 years. Is that really the true replacement? That's how much we get out of a jet ski? 3 years of usage?
No, normally we go about 7 years out of a jet ski. That's the recommended from the other agencies. The jet ski we have now is a 2017, so it's going on 10 years, so it is overdue. And we've got another one that was a hand-me-down from our fire department, which is a 2015, which when we took it down to get serviced, it blew a cylinder, and they said, you're just going to be pouring money into it, it's time to let that go. So the plan is to take the 2017 and move that down, actually get that on the beach 24/7 throughout the year, so we don't have that problem when we're responding to an emergency, having to get the ski out of a bay somewhere, down the ramp to the beach, launched in the water. It's already there, ready to go. And then put the 2015 Spark up for auction, and that money will help to offset the cost a little bit for the new ski. And then we're definitely not going to go we've been kicking the can down the road with the skis there, just trying to put a Band-Aid on and make them last as long as we can. So that's where we want to get both of them replaced and get them up to date. So it's not going to be every 3 years.
And you said the new ski's going down on the beach?
No, the
old ski.
2007, the old ski will go down to the beach. New ski will be housed up in the bay at our central headquarters.
How can we safely keep it on the beach? How is that possible? Or without interfering with turtle patrol and everything else?
Proposing is to build a storage, I want to call it a box, not a shed, just so we can keep it down on the beach there. We do have a hose that we can drop over from the pier to do the flushing and things like that, and just have it set up there. We're thinking maybe underneath where the bait shop is now, or somewhere there, where we can just drop the front door down. It's on a dolly with beach tires, and we can deploy it within 60 seconds of when we access it. And just keep it locked up on the beach, make the box light enough and portable enough that if we're getting harsh weather or high tides or something where we need to remove it off the beach temporarily, we can do that.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Gillen while he's up here? All right, thank you, Tom. And any other questions on page 48?
I had one more.
Yes, sir.
This is 5-year plan. $50,000 for 5-year plan for Veterans Park. I know I talked about this one of the other meetings. It doesn't get you much. That's for 5 years. There's nothing after that.
Which line were you looking at?
42.
42.
Unless there's money coming from somewhere else to help the Veterans Park improvements.
We do have in the facilities department $50,000 and then $100,000 next year, and then ongoing $50,000 in the facilities line for park improvements. So there is more money going toward parks in general. Just that's in the CRA fund. CRA fund can't pay for the maintenance, so, but there is other funds going from the general fund for Veterans Park outside of the CRA.
And which lines are those, just for reference?
Yeah.
That is on 47, line 8.
Okay. But, well, this brings up an interesting conundrum here. So that is for park improvements. I thought that line was for just parks in general. Is
It is.
that not the case?
No, it is. It's for all the 7 city parks that we have.
Okay. If that is the case, then I would say that's not enough. We've been fighting this for years and years. Do you have something?
Yeah, you're gonna divvy it up 50,000 for all of them?
That'll get you nowhere.
No, that's kind of what I was on the same wavelength as you two. Is I think we're gonna need to put a little bit more aside for the parks.
How many lights do we get out of $2,000 or $200,000 in the CRA? Just curious. Okay. And how many lights are installed for 200,000? Approximately.
I don't know, but I remember the cost on those things was outrageous. And, you know, I know they were all pretty and stuff, but if it was up to me, I'd be proposing a different design that was more cost efficient, but
Yeah, it's not like for like. Some work that we can just fix it, put the bulb in, put the bracket in, and others we're finding once we start, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. So.
Yeah, and I'm only bringing that up because, you know, I remember looking at the CRA budget some time ago and I saw the pie chart of the cost of the lights versus the cost of the park, and I couldn't believe, you know, how much more value we got, I feel like, out of the park. So did you want to discuss maybe if we can move some funds around?
Well, you bring up a good point. You sparked my interest. You know, and not to get ahead of what we're going to be dealing with tomorrow night, but there was, you know, for those of you that did some reading in the packets, there was mentions of Wayfinder in some of these parking proposals. I know we'll have discussions with that as well. So, you know, I know when I talked to you earlier today, you said, you know, you know, I don't want to, again, not get too far off the subject, but, you know, we've got 75K put away for the Wayfinder signs. I know we talked about that, but, you know, maybe tomorrow night we can kind of keep that in the back of our minds when we're interviewing these paid parking consultants that are going to be covering our CRA district, and see what they're, you know, because I can't remember which, you know, there's 4 of them, so they're all running together, but when I was reading through and preparing for tomorrow night's meeting, I did see the Wayfinder option, or they mentioned Wayfinder, so I mean, you know, and some of these, you know, paid parking people are working, so they say they're working in tandem with the businesses. So is it, maybe that's 75,000, again, I don't know what we're looking at implementation, and, you know, I know the mayor was pretty adamant about the Wayfinder process when we spoke about that early on in the budget process, but maybe it's, you know, you're looking for save a couple bucks here and there. Maybe it's something we might want to, not necessarily, I'm not opposed to keeping the Wayfinder program, but, you know, if we're going to have a paid parking program and it's right here on your phone, it might save us 75,000 if we're going to be, you know, we're not duplicating efforts at that point.
And remember, these are to build on the parks line. These are for capital improvements to the park. We're still doing that separate apart from the maintenance and the ongoing upkeep of the park. So
Right. I mean, but I think what Commissioner Santori and I were thinking is like we could pull from these funds maybe from the CRA to use towards specifically in Veterans Park improve. You know, whether I don't want to speak for you, but were you kind of thinking of?
Yeah, whether that be the shade structure we ask, even if it's down the line in a different year, or the other parks we have to put the capital improvements in there, or particularly Veterans Park, which could use some TLC.
And again, I think when we repurpose the funding for what's shown as a crosswalk, that's close to $500,000. That if we're going to reuse that money for the bathrooms and the other parking lot improvements, I expect that there will be money left over for that we can definitely apply to Veterans Park specifically. But we should have some preliminary park designs in early September from the landscape architect that we're working with to share with you an idea of where we're going to go with Veterans Park.
Do you guys? I don't know. I know Commissioner Cunningham and Commissioner Cooley mentioned it too about the additional funds for the parks outside the CRA district. I wasn't sure. Do you do you guys think that we need to pull some money from somewhere else to cover that for the next few years?
I do. I mean, that could be a budget for Veterans Park only, and it
Right.
still wouldn't be enough,
Exactly.
is my view. So I think that's a place to deposit some found money from other places, my view.
Absolutely.
I've been,
Just to briefly interrupt, in our reserve for park improvements fund, we have approximately $130,000 that's in the reserve fund, that if we want to apply to that, we can move forward with that. If you want to add another $100,000 to it, we can add.
our parks need so much work.
Yeah.
With equipment and all, and the going after certain parks for a big update is good, but replacing equipment and getting all of the parks as a sum updated and repairing equipment, I think needs to stay very much on the radar. I think
And
sometimes.
I think the facility staff has been doing a remarkable job lately, and I would encourage all of you, if you want to visit a park and see the efforts that have been put into Custer Park, into Pell Parker Park, into the boardwalk, all the parks, I encourage you to contact Mr. Whitwam, and he'll gladly show you all the work that's been going on to clean up the parks and improve the maintenance, which I would agree with all of you. You've raised that issue since I've been here, that we need to increase or improve the standards of our parks. And I think Mr. Whitwam and the facilities department is stepping up their game in a lot of those parks.
What about funding that big effort that he just talked about and get some of this money out of reserves and get it in the parks?
I'd be for it.
You all okay?
Yeah,
Mr. Bryant?
Absolutely.
Okay,
You good with that?
absolutely. We'll move over $100,000 from the
Now you
reserve to
can
that.
steroid the parks. Because they need it. Like, they need it. So that would be good to, now that we have staff that's going after it, let's give them the funding. All right, other questions or comments on page 48? Okay, page 40.
Yeah.
Right, the parks. Yeah. Yep. All right, page 49. Anybody got anything?
Already spoke word about the John Anderson and Roberts Road reuse lines.
Yeah. Well, I had comments about the manhole rings and covers. So we've had multiple lines of thought on this one too. So there is every manhole cover in the city needs replaced, and then there's other folks that believe that we should be replacing only the manhole covers that need replaced. Because then other folks are saying there are manhole covers that are in locations that they don't need to be replaced. And I guess, city engineer, if you could kind of get us caught up on where the project stands. Is it currently this outlook for the next number of years, is it to replace all the manhole covers or only certain manhole covers? Where did that end up?
So due to the age of the manhole rings and covers, and it's also in our comp plan, so the goal was to replace all of them citywide. So what we've been doing is we've targeted 50 per year. And so at some point, they all have to be replaced.
Okay, so we are under the impression, and I know nothing about manhole covers other than I drive over them. And so they all, y'all have determined that they all need to get replaced.
Yes, that was the goal set several years ago.
I just want to make sure, because we had, like, for instance, Commissioner Bellhumer was adamant that there wasn't, some didn't need replaced. I don't know enough
A whole
about
bunch
it.
of them that don't need to be replaced.
Don't need to be replaced now, I think, is the key thing. I mean, they have a lifespan.
Right.
What's the lifespan?
They'll last, it depends on obviously the weather, but here, 30 to 35 years is what they would last around here before they get too bad. Because if you look at some of them, they'll get rusted really bad. I mean, they'll get to a point where if you're trying to, say, lift the manhole lids if you're trying to insert a tool to get them lifted, the edges of them get so worn out to where you can't even get anything to lift them. So they just get harder and harder to actually do your inspections, lift them up, and we just don't want them to be a structural issue in the future.
All right.
I got a question about that.
Yes, sir.
City engineer, so I know you've selected some that are very good at keeping, you know, the water out. Do we need that same standard applied to like Central Ave, or are there more economical choices we can use?
You could always do that, but you know, when it comes to trying to reduce your infiltration and, you know, even when it rains and it's not in a area that floods, water still gets in. You still have your intrusion no matter what.
It drips.
Right. So by putting in the ones that we have with the seal around it, it just improves everything citywide. Okay. Any other call-outs on 49?
Yeah, I still got another one.
Yes, sir.
And this is, I don't mean to harp on something from the past, but, you know, when I look at the reclaimed water mains, the line of 81 and 82 for the design and the construction, and is this primarily to get, you know, the Veranda Bay reclaimed water?
It's for Veranda Bay and the areas north on Roberts Road.
Okay, and I'm bringing it up just because, you know, it was kind of sold to us that, or I'm sorry, sold to you that it would be paid for, you know, it would be getting a wastewater treatment plant or reclaimed water and be able to use it all, and it just seems like the cost keeps going higher and higher to complete this, and it just doesn't sit well with me, and I'm hoping something in the future can change that.
Yes.
Well, just in general, we would have to, whether Veranda Bay was there or not, we have to run the line up John Anderson anyway, and up Roberts Road to get to the existing subdivisions that are up there as well. But, yeah, the point is taken that, yeah, reuse is not going to be an inexpensive project.
Right. I mean, I know they put in their own infrastructure, which was approximately, I believe, was it $200,000, or maybe it was $600,000, but, you know, then we had to pick up the cost of the wastewater treatment plant, and now we're picking up the cost for the reclaimed water and picking up the cost for, you know, additional lines here to get them the reclaimed water. So, thank you.
And in general, this is the unfunded state mandate with Senate Bill 64, and they got to provide, you know, we have to comply with what that is, and that's part of the whole thing is, will we ever recover the cost of reclaimed water main? And I don't think we ever will, but it's a state mandate.
All right, other calls from 49. The only other thing I got is line 105. I don't get why we rotate out 3 police vehicles every year. And we started this last year. Why would we need to buy a new truck for the meter readers when we have telemetry, which cuts down that job? And I get they do other things, they replace meters and they do a bunch of work like that, but why aren't we doing what we basically committed to do, and that's use the older fleet vehicles for these type of things? Why are we buying a truck?
So I did ask other departments if they had one available, including the police department, and I was denied that. We do have 2 meter technicians, and we are in the process of working with Ms. Cruz and taking some of the responsibilities from T&D, placing them onto the new meter technician. She actually started today, and she will be doing specifically new meter installs, hands-on with the valve jobs. I talked to her today about significant updates in her training, so it's almost like a cross-training with Public Works and with us to separate them, because we need a second vehicle to continue that work. We've outfitted the truck. That truck includes, I did horizontal and vertical toolboxes, amber flashing light, brake pedal flashers, everything that could possibly be done, and I downsized it to a Ford Ranger, so it's a smaller vehicle, less gas better gas mileage for being in town. The current truck we have is a 2015. It does have 70,000 miles on it. I've been asked for the past 2 years, do you want to, put in a budget to get a new truck? And I've said no. This year, with the process of moving forward with Ms. Cruz and trying to separate out the responsibilities so that it's spread out, Neptune 360 is amazing. It does wonders for us. However, the work orders for July, 151 work orders, June, 125, May, 179. So we're doing an average of 150 work orders a month outside of reading meters. Prior, when we were reading meters, it took them 6 days. Take them 1 day now to read meters, and then we go immediately into the customer service of examining all of those results. I've now trained the meter technicians to review that data directly on their phone while they're reading. They're making notes as it's alerting them to let them know there's high usage or continuous consumption so that we can get that report immediately back to our residents, save them water and save us water consumption. So we are really trying to work forward and be more customer service friendly, whereas before if someone had a leak, we were just like, sorry, you have a leak, I can't read your meter. Now with Neptune 360, our girls are really digging in and able to tell somebody, you have 110 gallons an hour going through your line, let's help you.
And to your point, I believe this is the last year that we actually have sedans for police cars, which would be inappropriate instead of the truck. But now, because they basically stopped making the sedans, police cars, and everything is trucks and SUVs, we will be able to do that going forward.
Yeah.
Did you say the meter readers are changing water meters?
Yes, they do. They do repair on meters. And like I said, the new technician that started today, we had a conversation about cross-training with T&D and really getting hands-on to install new meters and take that away from T&D so that they can focus more on what they need to do.
You said they read all the...
Right, just the new ones. Yeah. Yeah, so they hook everything up, and then we're going to go in and install the new meters so that their team can take that task away from them.
You said they read all the meters in the whole town in 1 day?
Yes. So it's electronically read as they're driving. They have an app on their phone. There's an antenna on the truck, and it actually, they just drive down every road. So it's around the 12th or 13th of the month. We try to keep it consistent, and you'll see the meter reader just going up and down every single road, and it's just gathering that data, and it'll just like ding into.
What do they do the rest of the week?
Like I said, 151 work orders just last month. And today they were out doing a pressure test because there was a customer that had issues with her water yesterday, so I immediately sent them out to help that on a pressure test. We're doing data logs, usually about 90 data logs a month, and that's where we're analyzing continuous usage or high reads out of 3,612 meters.
So I get that they're doing work. That's not what I was having an issue with. What I'm having an issue with is last budget, we said, and we even talked about taking what would have been last year 3 cruisers, this year another 3 cruisers, and retroing them to do these light duty jobs. I don't work in the department. I don't know what's going in the back of these trucks, but I don't know why we can't use the sedans for light duty work. They have cages in the back. They carry tons of stuff. They already have the lights on them, and this is what we talked about last budget, was using those for that purpose. Are they carrying equipment that's so big that it won't fit in a sedan?
I'd have to defer to.
I mean, Jen can probably explain the exact meter sizes, but the sedans that the police department do have that are ready for auction, they have 100,000 miles on them. So they're significant, and I know Mike can speak.
They weren't supposed to go to auction. That's the whole point.
They haven't, but I'm saying like those that...
We're saying they're ready for auction, and we're not doing anything with them.
They're being taken out of service, but they're not appropriate for the water meter readers. This is $40,000 to replace a truck.
They're not replacing, we're adding a truck.
No, we're replacing.
Well, we're keeping the 2015 in service for her to just do the light duty, whereas this truck is going to be more heavy duty to take away from T&D. And I probably am phrasing that incorrectly, but we're trying to give them more freedom to be able to get into the depths of their work where this is lighter duty stuff.
The meter readers already, and so we do the installation and they do repair maintenance.
Hmm?
So that's why she's saying they need one truck to do work orders on that side and then a truck to do repairs and maintenance to the valves and meters and boxes.
Yeah, I've seen them out there. I didn't know you couldn't throw a shovel in the back of a car, though. That's, I don't know. I'll let, y'all can weigh in on it. You can feel free
Again,
to ride.
this is your budget. If you want to take the truck out and us repurpose a police sedan, then we can do that. This
I
is
just
your
want it,
budget.
I just want it written in the record that, you know, I don't know, for 6 years, I'm okay with a truck this year.
Last year.
But I think for, you know, I don't know, 5 years, we've been, this predates you, Penny, you recall, you know, we've been, you know, trying to figure out a program like this, and I know the police cars, they get beat up, they go through some things, but I mean, I'd really like to see some sort of plan of act, you know, I'm going to set that as a goal for you next year. I'm not going to get off the subject, but fleet management, we got to do this. I mean, we got to figure out something. I mean, I'm glad we've downsized because, I mean, when I first started, everybody was getting F-250s. So I'm glad we're downsizing and being more fiscally responsible in that aspect. But, you know, and I appreciate the, you know, the understanding why you guys need the truck and everything. But I think, you know, again, moving forward, like, I don't know, the engineer, I remember a couple of years ago, not to pick on the engineer or somebody who worked for Lee, we got them a little, you remember that? I don't know, you guys, you and Scott were here, we approved a little car where we probably could have just given them a police cruiser. You know, I mean, 100,000 miles on a car, I mean, still you're probably just breaking in the engine a little bit if you're just driving around here in town. But I'd be okay with the truck this year, but I just think moving forward, we really do need to come up with some sort of plan and before we just go send the police cruisers off to auction, because, you know, I know we have the union negotiations with them and everything, but I really would like to see a really solid plan when, you know, this comes before us next year.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had an agreement on this last year, and I've yet to see one vehicle follow that plan. I guess that's my point. But I'm not going to belabor it. Any other call-outs on page 49? All right, page 50. We pretty much covered all that stuff.
Yeah.
Any discussion on page 50?
Yeah, we already talked about the revenues, 500,000, but that's, it.
All right. So, at least that takes care of the binder. Now, there was some pending stuff, some information, mostly about the healthcare costs, because that had significant pieces of it that were going to help budget and balance things out. Is there any new information on that yet, or is that forthcoming?
No, that'll be forthcoming. We're, like I said, we put together a spreadsheet. I'll share that with you to look over what the options are in front of us, but we don't have anything yet to come before the city commission, but we'll incorporate all the revisions we've talked about and projected for the healthcare, and we'll have that for you before the probably next week or after, when we get back from Florida League of Cities, we'll have something, revised budget documents to give to you so you can review those and make sure we're all on the right path.
Is there any discussion about the budget we need to have before I open it up to public comment, general discussion on any of the pages or anything?
I had one thing.
Yes, sir.
When I went to the wastewater plant Friday, seen Johnny, I don't know how much money's budgeted for the sign shop, but there's nothing going on in there. I mean, literally. The door was locked, and somebody was in there. He opened the door, nice fella, and I asked him how many signs he made a week, just as a question. He said he only makes them when he's asked to make them. And it was like walking into somebody's house. There was a living room, recliner, big screen TV, refrigerator. I mean, it was like a house. What are we doing with the sign shop? We're just wasting money. I looked it up, and you can get 5 500 signs a year for $20,000 from a third party. I don't know how many, I know it's costing more than $20,000 to have a full-time person in a building making signs when and is needed.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to address it, Jen, or do you want to address the sign effort, or?
Do we have is that staffer somebody that's what their job is to make signs?
No. No, we have a member of the Public Works team who goes over there whenever a sign is requested. But the rest of the time, he's with the rest of the team.
So he's not in there full-time?
No.
I thought that's what I heard him tell me. That's why I was asking about it.
Commissioner Cunningham, was he in there making a sign when you went in there?
No. No, I don't even think he can make signs. He said something's broke or something, I think. But what does he do when he's not making signs?
He's in our department working with the crew on whatever needs to be done, like road, streets, or utility signs.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe in a previous edition of Friday Notes, I sent you copies of several signs that had been replaced, stop signs, street name signs. So, yes, the work is being done by the sign shop.
Do we ever get all them signs on the south side of A1A done that people were constantly complaining about? Where it said 21st, 22nd, and all the blocks. Remember how a bunch were missing?
I'd have to double check on that.
There shouldn't be any of them missing.
They've all been replaced? Okay. Yeah, that was a while ago.
Drove around and made a whole list, and everything's been updated signs, and they've all been replaced now. All the time.
Is there like some kind of man cave in there or something?
There's a break room in there, yeah. There was a lot of stuff that was donated.
I would live in there.
Okay. I don't know anything about it.
Wouldn't let me.
Sounds like a cool place to go.
Check it out.
All right. Any other questions about budget at all? Commissioner Santori.
Just a statement. I just wanted to thank staff for accurately budgeting for overtime. I noticed on old budgets that it wasn't, and as much as we'd like to curtail it, and hopefully will, it just was happy to see that it was accurately on there. And that's, thank you for your presentation. I thought the original presentation that came before us on the screen, I thought that was very nice, and it's giving me some ideas on next year's budget already, so appreciate it.
All right. With that, I'll open up public comment.
I didn't know, is Johnny still here? Thanks for showing me around Friday, Johnny. You got some good guys over there at Screw Press. Yeah, it's worth going to.
You guys are going to be afraid to have us over there. All right, I'll open this up public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak about budget? I don't think we have any members of the public. Quint! Come on, Quint. All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. City manager, any other business we need to talk about?
No, look forward to seeing you yet again tomorrow night at 5:30. I know Commissioner Spradley can't be here, the mayor won't be here either. Again, the intent tomorrow is basically a meet and greet with the 4 consultants that were recommended by the evaluation team. There's no decisions to be made tomorrow night. Then, after the meet and greet, it is tentatively scheduled to be on the September 10th agenda for the commission to decide if, for you to select one consultant to move forward with in negotiations or discussion, not negotiations, discussions with city staff under the parameters to develop an implementation and an operational plan. But that's not until September, and so it's just meet the 4 consultants tomorrow, and then there'll be the heavy lifting, or the initial phase of the heavy lifting on September 10th, and then that'll probably take, before something officially comes to you, there'll be several updates, but I expect that'll take 6 to 8 months to
You
move
can ask
forward.
some specific questions though, because there's a Q&A portion, right? Like,
Absolutely.
okay, I just want to make
Absolutely.
sure.
Is this a meeting or a meet and greet?
No, it's a workshop. Their job is to come, they have a half an hour to present their background, their experience to you, and then you can ask questions about it. But you're not making any decisions about who you want to go with. You may formulate an opinion, but then that'll be officially before you on September 10th.
All right. The meet and greet part threw me off, because,
That's intended to like, yes, it's an introduction
action.
from them, no action.
right. Okay, they're going to present their stuff.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Spriley?
Yeah, I just want to expand on something that Commissioner Santori said. And that is, I know how much, or I can only guess how much work that staff put into this, including the city manager and finance and everyone else. But it really was helpful this year more than any other year. For the presentations were excellent, so I appreciate all the work that everyone did, not just in helping Mr. Martin and his team put it together, but then your presence here. Everyone had. I learned a lot about your department, so I appreciate it.
Further business? Look for motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.